The seller property questionnaire. So remember, this form protects the seller, so you want to disclose everything you can think of as detailed as possible, anything that a buyer may want to know. The standard is listed right here, and it says any known material or significant item affecting the property's value or desirability. You must answer based on actual knowledge, so you don't have to speculate, but if you know, you put it down. If you don't know, you don't put it down. Let's go ahead and dive in. The second area just says a note to the buyer, and it says that the seller will disclose everything. However, the buyer is still responsible for following up and finding out any other significant items because sellers aren't aware of everything. So let's just dive in. This first part is pretty straightforward. It asks questions, and anytime you check a yes, what you want to do is immediately go down to the explanation and write the number, and then a brief explanation of what you mean. So these questions are, for instance, within the last 3 years, the death of an occupant on the property. If the answer was yes, you would put number 1 and an approximate date. All the rest of them are straightforward. Insurance claims affecting the property in the past 5 years. Again, if this was 1, you would say yes, number 5, etc. Repairs and alterations. So this is anything that you're aware of that's been done since you've owned the property from a modification standpoint. And just answer these questions as best you can. Keep your explanations brief, but very factual. Structural items and appliances. These are talking about any specific defects that you're aware of, past or present, including ones that have been repaired. So anything you can think of in water, sewer, waste disposal, septic, sump pumps, roof, gutters, chimneys, anything that is listed here. If it's a yes, again, a brief explanation right down here. Number 2 is the leasing of any of the things on the property, like solar systems, water softeners. If anything's leased, again, listed out here. Disaster relief. Any financial assistance from any disaster relief? If so, explain. Water-related and mold issues, any water intrusion on the property, soil slippage, mold, mildew, fungus, rivers, streams, flood channels. Read these carefully. If the answer is yes, again, explanation right below. Pets and animals and on the property, any pets on the property? If it's a yes, list out, 1 dog, for instance. Problems with livestock or insects, any past or present odors from pets or anything on the property, any past or present treatment or eradication of pests or odors. So anything that you've done, you want to list here as well. Boundaries and access of other property. Has there been any surveys or encroachments, any property boundary disputes? You want to list those. If you're using anyone else's property, or if anyone is using your property, driving over it, anything like that, then you want to list that right here. Landscaping, pool, and spa. If you have any of these, it goes through the details of what's included and is everything working. Condominiums or common interest developments. This is if it applies to you, then please fill it out as far as anything that you know about it. Any title, ownership, or legal claims. Again, just read these over carefully, and if you have an answer to yes, then put the number and a brief explanation right below. Neighborhood is next. We get into noise, nuisances, other problems, and then they talk about some to remember. Neighbors, traffic, parking congestion, airplanes, trains, light rail. The answer here is if you think it, then you should probably disclose it. So if the question comes into your mind, I wonder if I should disclose this, the answer is yes, and then put the explanation as best you can. Governmental, so this involves anything that's going on with the government, eminent domain. Are they closing schools? Are they opening a fire station close by? Anything that you know about. So again, not speculation or hearsay, but if you know it, then this is where you put it right here. any reports that we've had done or have been done are disclosed right here. So if the answer is yes for the reports, you list out the reports that you have. Any occupant on the property smoking, you answer that here. And then anything else that you can think of that you haven't disclosed so far, you'll want to list out right below. And that is the SPQ, or the Seller Property Questionnaire. The Real Estate Transfer Disclosure Statement. So this is a statutory disclosure, and that means that California law specifies this form is used whenever a property is being transferred. So the beginning of it just explains that there are some other statutory disclosures that must be made as well, like the natural hazard disclosure, earthquake, flood, and special assessment disclosures as well. And then this box is checked to say that those reports will be included with this form. Getting down into how to fill it out. Number one is right here. The seller is or is not occupying the property. And then simply list and check everything that is included: range, oven, microwave, dishwasher, etc. throughout all of these. If the property has it, put a check box. Down here it says exhaust fans in. Often they're in the laundry room, the kitchen, and the bathrooms. You want to list wherever they are. 220-volt wiring in. Very often there's one in the laundry room. For the dryer, with an electric oven, there's often one, or perhaps in the garage. You want to list that. Fireplaces in, just the rooms they are. Whether they're gas starter or gas fireplaces, then you would say yes. The type of roof, composite, shingle, etc. The approximate age of the roof. This is just your best estimate. It's just a good approximation if you know. Please put that down. And then down here it says, are you aware of any of the above things that are not in operational condition? If you are, then check yes and list anything that it may be right there. Next up is, are you, the seller, aware of any significant defects or malfunctions in any of the following: walls, ceilings, floors, exterior wall, insulation, etc. If you are, then check yes, check which ones they are, and describe what is that defect. Next up is an area to be careful as you're filling this out, because they're hard to keep in alignment. The very first thing is substances or material that may be an environmental hazard, such as asbestos. Remember, you must know about it, not speculate, but if you know something, then you disclose it here. If you know of this, you would check yes, and then you're down here for the explanation, you would put number 1, and then you would list out what it is. Here's the trick question. Features of the property shared in common with adjoining landowners, such as walls, fences, and driveways. Very often the perimeter fence does share, so this is the one that almost everybody needs to check yes, and then down here would put number 2 and say perimeter fencing if that's the case. Read these over carefully and make sure that you continue along those lines. Anything that you say yes, you then put the number down in the explanation and you list out a quick, brief explanation of what that is. This next section says that the seller will certify that there will be smoke detectors operating as approved, and the seller is also certifying that the hot water heater will be braced according to applicable law as well. Seller signs here. This next section is the agent inspection disclosure. So both agents, for the buyer and the seller, will perform an agent visual inspection disclosure, and that's checked right here, and that's a separate form that is prepared by the agents themselves. The lead-based paint disclosure. So any home that is built before 1978 needs to fill out this form. And this form, the seller discloses whether they are aware of any lead-based paint in the property. If you have knowledge of it, then you list out where that is, and if you don't, then you don't put anything there.